So all the offense for the Saints has completely gone out the window after the first 2 weeks. Not entirely, but this has been an interesting game between the Saints and Eagles. If you expected offensive fireworks and a lot of points on the board, well, you're not getting any of that. You could settle for 3 points between the two teams in the first half. So let's talk about it with our halftime show powered by 4D. I'm Chris Rosvoglu, as always, from the Straight Up Saints podcast. And let's just jump right into it as we've been doing the last couple of weeks, guys. If you have some thoughts about the game, predictions, concerns, anything, put it in the chat and I'll get to your comments in just a few minutes and then we'll go from there. But I'll just start off with my brief observations as we jump into this. And I think the main takeaway is what you guys are all going to say. Erik McCoy's injury is huge, not just for this game, but for the rest of the season too, depending on how much time he misses, out with a groin injury for the rest of the game. And when he goes down, you realize that Erik McCoy is the glue that holds the interior of the Saints offensive line together. Because without him right now, we've seen Cesar Ruiz struggle mightily. We've seen the Saints look a little out of sorts from communication standpoint. And the biggest problem, and I don't know if it'll be able to be, solved in this game, maybe in future games when you're game planning and you have a whole week to prep, it's a little bit different. But for this one, the problem that I see is how are they going to slow down Jalen Carter? Jalen Carter has been an absolute menace in the interior for the Saints, which is a big problem for them. They're moving the ball at times, but compare the first drive to what we see the rest of the game, it's been vastly different for this team. So I think that that's the main concern and the main takeaway, the interior of this offensive line. How does it look now that you don't have Erik McCoy in the game? That's the big question. And then there's other factors that I'll get to in just a second, but I want to remind you guys, if you're watching the show, if you enjoy the show, make sure to like it. Greatly helps out the channel, and subscribe, because later on, after this game goes final, we'll have our post-game live stream as we always do here on the Straight Up Saints podcast. So I mentioned Erik McCoy. That's the main takeaway. Groin injury. He's out for the rest of the game. I don't think the Saints are going to be able to be that offense that they like to, which is running the football at a high clip, especially in the middle. I don't think you could just run into the teeth of the Philly defense right now without Erik McCoy. So that's a big problem. Offensively, I think you might have to go to a couple more 3 wide receiver sets, face a lighter box, and maybe run outside the tackles and see if Alvin can make a man miss and go from there if you're going to run the football. But I think protecting Derek Carr is obviously going to be paramount. They haven't done a great job, but this is going to fall on the defense. I know it may seem unfair, and they've done a great job today, but this game is going to fall on this defense to get the job done. Saints offense, great through the first 2 weeks. Now this defense that I believe is a Super Bowl caliber unit, when they're fully healthy, they got to keep doing what they're doing right now. Interception from Tyrann Mathieu to take points off the board. Huge to get that in the red zone. Carl Granderson's strip sack. That was a decent drive for the Eagles. We don't know if that one results in points. Like Tyrann Mathieu's interception literally takes points off the board. That's great for this defense. You look at the strip sack from Carl Granderson. Man, was that really important for them. And then stuffing Saquon Barkley on 4th and 1 to make sure it's not 3-3 or maybe even 7-3 at the half where you're trailing. Saints have the advantage because Philly gets the ball back. So it's going to fall on this defense. And man, it is kind of stressful because time of possession-wise, Saints got kind of kicked in the teeth when it comes to that second quarter. Philly held it for about 12 minutes of the 15 in that second frame. So I'm a little concerned about that part. Does this defense get a little fatigued? But they've been outstanding. Dennis Allen has that unit playing out of their mind right now. But you got to make sure that you don't mess up on simple things. Alontae Taylor missed a tackle that if he makes, you stop the drive there, you get one more possession before the end of the half. So you got to do that. Dallas Goedert, I'm sure someone's mentioned him already, but he's been killing this Saints defense. He's the only thing I'd say right now that concerns me for the Saints defense. They've been great. They're getting pressure. Lane Johnson might be out for the rest of the game, so maybe Carl Granderson or Chase Young can take advantage there. I think Goddard, you got to slow him down and see what you do there. But everything's been in the flats for Philly. I don't believe they believe that they can get big plays on this Saints defense outside of the one to Goddard that they had in the first half. So we'll see what happens, but this is going to fall on the defense. And offensively, Chris Olave or Rashid Shaheed, can one of them make a play to kind of decide this game and swing momentum in New Orleans' favor? Rashid Shaheed had a chance, doesn't end up coming down with it. You could say the throw wasn't great. You could say maybe Shaheed has to come down with it. Either way, if the Saints get another opportunity, they got to strike, because I feel like with the way this defense is playing, if the Saints get a quick stop and then have a scoring drive and all of a sudden it's 10-0, with the way that this unit is playing right now, I think you can put the Eagles in a really, really bad spot. So I'm excited to see how this defense goes and how this offense responds. We're going to learn a lot about this Saints team in the next 15, 30 minutes of play. How do they handle adversity? They've been dealt a decent bit right now. No Taysom, no Erik McCoy. We'll see what they do. So I'll get into comments that you guys have. So if you have anything you want to say about this game, put it in the chat and we'll go from there. Connor says, got to do something about Dallas Goedert. Yeah, I feel that way for sure. He's been outstanding for the Eagles right now. I'll pull up the box score because I lost track of how many catches. I feel like he had 5 or 6, not even 7 catches for 80 yards. So he's been outstanding. Saints got to slow him down. He's clearly been the focal point for Philly's offense. T-Mama says, who dat? Instinctive 30 says the defense is literally the reason we're still winning. The offense needs to step it up. I don't disagree with that at all. I mean, the defense has been outstanding. This is a Super Bowl caliber defense with the way they look right now. Granted, week 3 against a pretty talented Eagles offense. And obviously, you don't want it to completely fall on them because you feel like that's unfair. You feel like you make it a one-sided game. But it is going to fall on them because I think right now, with the way the Saints are playing on offense, they are not protecting Derek Carr, and they're not getting good, running lanes for the ground game. So where does that production come from? Where do those easy first downs come from? I'm not sure at the moment. So that's why I say it's going to fall on the defense. But I agree with you. They are definitely stepping up. Tier 1 Solution says, I'm in a glass cage of emotion. Aren't we all? This is the first game, guys, that I feel that that anxiety of a fan again, where you're so anxious because you want to win these big games. I haven't felt that in a couple of years. This is the one where it feels a little good to watch it. You get that nerves in, but if the Saints come out with the win here, man, you feel good. Thomas says, miss Erik McCoy badly. No doubt about it. Tier 1 Solution 28 says, our O-line leaks like my diaper. It is leaking right now. Pretty big time. And that's why it's tough to really have an assessment, right? You look at the numbers and you're like, oh, Derek Carr, 51 yards. What the hell's going on there? That's a horrible stat line. I mean, it's hard to say. Had Foster Moreau wide open, your guards run into each other, and then Jalen Carter's able to get a hand up because it's kind of a freebie for him, and he swats that pass down. Other plays where it seems like they might have a screen loading up, or they might have a quick dump off loading up, and Derek's got immediate pressure in his face. It's tough to say. So if they could get some protection there, maybe we'll see what Derek can do in these adversity, pressure situations. But until then, it's tough to say. Hel Mendoza says, shout out to Carl Granderson. Carl Granderson's been the MVP of this game. I don't even think it's a question. He's just been outstanding. Outstanding. Shreve says their O-line is insane. Hurts is basically untouchable. You just can't get to him. Yeah, I mean, that last drive, at one point I thought Jalen Hurts could have, got up, ran over to the French Quarter, picked whatever tourist gifts he wants, and then come back and then complete the pass. And you don't want to see that. But at the same time, Jalen Hurts is the type of quarterback that I think you'd rather keep him in the pocket than let him roll out. So it's kind of a give and take. I'm not saying the Saints want him to stay in the pocket for 10 seconds, but I'm also knowing the Saints and the way they play and how Jalen Hurts likes to play. They don't want Jalen Hurts in there for 2 seconds and then bouncing out and making a huge play on the run. So it's kind of a tough proposition. Saints 41 says, no matter what happens, Saints are back. It feels like a playoff game, which is crazy. It's week 3, but the environment is intense. The dome is rocking, which is awesome. So we'll see. We'll see, but I feel a lot better about this team. I know it's 3-0 and people are going to be like, oh, what happened to the offense? We know what happened. Erik McCoy went down. Eagles are killing the Saints in the interior of that O-line right now. And you kind of have to change your game script, but that's what halftime's for. Adjustments are going to be made and you just got to hope you make the right ones. Jerry G says, thank God for the defense. They look suspicious out there, but they always come up strong at the end. Yeah, I mean, you want to talk about bend, but don't break. That's what they're doing right now in certain moments. Joshua Rivera says, need more screens to stop the pass rush. It's possible. I mean, you might have to get that early. But that might be tough too, guys. There's been moments where the Saints have had good plays dialed up, and there's been blocks that just aren't being executed. I'm not trying to single guy out. Foster Moreau, though, has missed a couple of big-time blocks for the Saints that could have been nice 8-9 yard gains, and you end up getting nothing out of it. Tier 1 Solution 28 says Chase Young signing was big for us. For sure. I will say, though, and Greg Olsen did a good job of bringing it up on the broadcast, he's got to be careful when he's rushing after Hurts. If he gets too deep on his rush, Hurts can just leak out and make a big play in the run game, and obviously you don't want that. Kenneth says they're daring Carr to throw it. I mean, sure. I don't think they have the secondary, in my opinion, for I don't think the Eagles have the secondary to hold up with Olave and Shaheed. The thing for the Eagles that's helping them out right now is Carr's not having much time. That first drive when Carr had time and he felt like he was in rhythm and you get the ball to Olave, you're like, okay, you're cooking in that regard. But hasn't really had much time since. The Rashid Shaheed one, you're talking about an inch, 2 inches away from that being 7. So I think, yeah, they can dare Carr to throw. If Carr gets time, I do think he will make this Philly secondary pay at some point in the second half. Jalen Carter is running through the inside. Need to fix that. Carr is backing up 10 yards before throwing. We need to give him time. I agree on both accounts. I mean, especially Jalen Carter. They got to figure out a way to limit the damage there. He has been wrecking this game from the very start. And obviously, he's such a talented player, so you're not surprised, but he's been a menace. Defense has had 3 big plays, but outside that, they have a few mistakes and need to clean up a touch if our offense remains stagnant. They do. I will say, I love the way they're playing in the run defense. Saquon's got like 3-point-something yards per carry. And I do think they're making the Eagles go into a lot of 3rd and longs, which is great. I do agree on the miscues. There have been a couple, and they got to clean that up. But again, we'll see what happens in the second half. And I think as this game plays out, the Saints are going to know this, depending on how the third quarter goes, the Saints defense will know going into the fourth whether or not this game is going to ride on that. The Saints offense comes out firing in the second half, then all right, you could ease up a little bit. But they're going to know they can't afford any of those miscues, and we'll see if they end up doing a great job of avoiding them. But the pressure will be on. Nicholas says have to get Olave involved again. They could if they give Carr time, they'll be able to get Olave involved. And like I said, I don't think this Philly secondary can hang with Olave, but it doesn't matter if your quarterback doesn't have time to throw. Hannah Mendoza says definitely got to open up the pass more. Atlanta and Green Bay were killing Philly in the middle of the field. We got to do the same. Can't be stubborn offensively speaking. I agree. And I definitely think that's going to be the key for them. They're not going to be able to run up and down the field on Philly at this point. I think we're seeing right now with Erik McCoy, with him being out, it's a little bit of struggle. That said, you can still run the football. I just think you're going to have to go all the way to the left side and really run behind Fuaga, who's been tremendous as a rookie. So that might be where you go. But no Taysom as a lead blocker kind of stinks at times. Obviously, Eric being out is a struggle for them. So I think that's a big problem for them. Fredo says, need Taysom to loosen Philly D. Warner's a weak link on D. Yeah, I mean, you could argue about Pete Werner, especially in the pass game. But I think in the run game, Pete Werner's been pretty fine right now. He did get lucky at one point with, I'd say, an errant throw from Jalen Hurts where he got beat by Goddard. But in terms of the run game, he's been fine. Forgive says Ruiz is horrible. McCoy was a huge loss. Ruiz has been, to me, the weak link of this game. Not trying to sound harsh, but he's been rough so far. And we'll see if he can respond. And you start to wonder, I mean, how much does Erik McCoy disguise for this O-line? John says, let's hope we get that Dennis Allen trademark second half shift. I'd love that. We know DA, one thing he does really well is making those adjustments in the second half. So hopefully he can do that because, man, that would be big for them. Traeger says, I think we need to utilize some wide receiver reverses. Everything we run to the outside, we get yards. Shaheed could eat on a reverse. I do agree with that. I actually think that that's what you're going to do. I think if you're New Orleans, I'm trying to run on Fuaga's side pretty much the first drive of this third quarter. See if you have success. If you do, maybe you can carry that out for the rest of the game. But I don't think we're seeing enough. I also do think they got to get Shaheed involved anyway. There are moments where Philly's secondary is locked in on him. I get that, but they're not a particularly fast unit. And I think that you could have success there. So I don't want to predict it for sure, but I wouldn't be surprised if Shaheed has a huge play in the third quarter. I just feel like one's brewing for the Saints. Space African Jesus says, I'm so confused about that last play by the Eagles. Thankful, but confused. Yeah, I mean, look, at some point you're going to do a counter to the tush push. To do it in that moment's a little interesting, but we'll see. Let's see. I'll get one more comment in here before we get into the second half. I'll go with Sergio's here. I just want CD to get cooked for a tutty. That could happen if they give Carr time. I fully believe that because Gardner Johnson's been in a tough spot. So anyway, guys, I know there's other comments I missed. I do dearly apologize that for the second half is coming back, though. We're going to see what happens. Hopefully the Saints can hold on here, make a couple plays, and improve to 3-0. Regardless of the result, though, we will be back here for our post-game live stream at Boo Crew Media and from the Straight Up Saints podcast. So make sure you guys subscribe to the channel and also hit the alert button so you get notified when we go live in about an hour and a half from now. So I'll talk to you guys all later, and I'll make sure to get everyone's comment on the screen when we start for our post-game live.